Good afternoon. I'm Drew Holley with BIS. This is America's most boring podcast because we're going to talk about insurance and business-to-business insurance. I'm joined today by Jesse and Eric. Eric is a guest of ours. The more specific the product, the more niche your needs are as a business for specific risk protection, we go to someone like Eric in the marketplace who has access to just hundreds of different insurance carriers. We're going to talk about plumbers specifically today. What are the unique risks that a plumber should say, hey, you might want to consider have this protection or not have this exclusion, things that a carrier wouldn't cover? I'll start with you, Jesse. What have you seen? Maybe some horror stories, or maybe you helped prevent some horror stories of what a plumber would need to know for business insurance. And business insurance is so broad, but that could mean workers' comp. It could mean liability. It could mean some people might even mistake it, call us commercial auto. But what are some things, if I'm a plumber, I have 10 employees, I have 20, what would you recommend if it was your own family member to have covered or make sure things aren't being excluded?
General liability is going to be one of the biggest things that you want to buy from an insurance perspective for a plumber. And so what is that going to cover? That's third-party bodily injury or property damage. So the most claims that I typically see for a plumber are them hitting a water line or not putting something on right, and then a line backs up and floods a house or a commercial building, depending if they're a residential or commercial plumber. So as far as some things to be aware of, especially as a newer company, you may have to go with a non-standard type of general liability policy. So some exclusions that can be on there are residential exclusions. And so this isn't typically for something if they're coming out to your house, they would have an exclusion for the service work they do. But if you're doing condos, like a whole condo development, townhomes, tract home builder for D.R. Horton, something like that, a really big residential builder, a lot of general liability carriers will have a residential exclusion for that. So
that's a big deal. So if you're a plumber and 50% of your business is residential,
yeah,
you're like, oh, I have insurance.
Yep.
Is it as simple as getting a copy of the policy and hitting Control F and just looking for exclusions?
Yeah, the devil's in the details. So it's just sometimes if it's a higher risk business, we have to go to what's called a non-standard carrier.
Yeah.
So that's
and having someone sophisticated, it has to be expertise, and now it's just selling you what's the cheapest product versus what actually is covering your true exposure. Because you see a lot of that.
Yeah, it's almost like if I were to go back and put on my hat 20 years ago before I came a big dork and got into insurance. If you're 16, 18 years old, you're driving your auto insurance policy, you're like, I'm covered. The moment you go from Georgia to Florida, oh, it's not covered. Mm-hmm. That's the complications of business insurance or specific industries. And it's not always the carriers being bad actors.
right.
It could be a default template quote.
Exactly.
If you're a business owner, a lot of you hate insurance. We make jokes of it. We have mid-year reviews. We talk. It's the last thing you want to talk about. I get it, because you're out there trying to grow your business. If you don't have a really good broker who understands there's literally an exclusion on half your business, you might as well be paying for nothing.
Yeah.
Right?
Piece of paper.
It's a piece of paper that you're spending $20,000 a year on that will cover basically only 1% what you thought it would cover.
Yeah.
And have you seen those scenarios?
More than you would imagine. It is amazing how many times we've found policies, whether it's in the GL world and the E&O world, where they are excluding exactly what the business does. And it's not uncommon. People just place a policy where it's the cheap option, they can get an online quote. They don't really realize it's not necessarily covering what they do, or excludes the majority of what their work is. And if you're buying an insurance policy, the overall goal, I feel like, is to cover your own personal, the balance sheet of the company itself, cover your own personal investment into this company you've been building. So you want to make sure you're buying the right product that covers that. That way it's not you forking out of your own pocket or your business pocket to cover this down the road.
That's why my number one recommendation, you owe it to yourself, if you're a business owner, is ask your controller or your CFO to review this at least every couple of years. And it's not as simple as just give me a quote. If your mindset is just give me a quote, Jesse's going to miss the opportunity to say, hey, tell me about your business. Are you doing residential? Are you doing commercial? Are you going across state lines? And if you don't take the time to answer that and just say, just give me a bid and a quote, you literally could be paying for a $100,000 piece of paper that covers almost nothing, but you think you have insurance. And we talk about this a lot in our meetings. Our competition at BIS isn't Hartford or Travelers, your carrier. It's your broker and it's your policy. And if your broker isn't talking about this up front, even though you really, really like them as a person, I don't know about you, but I like protecting, a multi-million-dollar business that, we've built out through blood, sweat, and tears. And I can't afford to have someone I just like who doesn't know to even ask the question, do I do residential or commercial? Mm-hmm. And so that's my biggest advice to you is you need to be aware of this. It's too important. Understandably, a lot of these people have these policies at the beginning to check the box, but as your business expands and you become multi-million-dollar business, you need to review this at least once every couple of years. Well, thank y'all today. If you have any questions related to this or you're a plumber and you're curious, do I have a non-standard? Do I have a standard? What does that even mean? We'd love to educate you further. So reach out to bisbenefits.com. We'd love to talk to you. Thank you.